Sometimes, like the beginning of a stream will get a little bit cut off. So I'll wait about 20 seconds or so. And then we'll get on to the topic as I walk to work. It's been a little while since I've done a video like this. Let me wipe off fingerprinty smudges. Maybe make that looks a little clearer. So, yeah, the question, is my book present tense? And a few other things about writing so far. It's been a few days since I've written. I did go to the library. I've been there twice now, and I've read some from the Chicago Manual of Style 14th edition, because someone on Reddit said I should when I, did the whole thing about, what was it? Oh yeah, the Yes Sweetie thing that I did on Reddit, and talking about that. They used a little bit of language in their comment. They were very, demanding that I go and do that kind of a thing, which I didn't really like, but since it's at the library for free, why not? I've learned a few things, but it's not the most interesting thing to me. And so I I have a friend. I'm not going to be specific about who this friend is, but I was talking with him, and I'm like, it was a little bit boring, and because he's like, oh, what's it about? Well, it's about writing and how a book gets published and this stuff. And oh, that sounds exciting. Really? Based on his patterns and behavior, I'm not really sure if it would be that exciting, but to each his own. Some people really love this stuff. There's an example in the book. I forget I think it's where you put comma, or I forget what. But basically, there are two types of people who read the Chicago Manual of Style. Perfectionists and humorists. I'm a little more in the perfectionist camp, although I'm mostly reading this because the person said. And my main point is I just want to read the punctuation section. That's kind of what the original discussion on Reddit was about. And I want to learn what I can with punctuation that way. But I'm finding the reason I don't like it, and I don't really like books over the internet, not counting if I just read someone's story, because although it's been a while since I've just sat down and read a story, I can do that no problem as long as I'm interested. Hey, we got one watching, welcome. But the thing I found with this is, what's the right word? So the thing I found with this is I can't just search for what I'm looking for. And if the examples in the book aren't enough to explain it to me, because I learn best by examples. Seeing examples of things right and wrong is more often better than just explaining it to me, I found, especially when it comes to all this writing stuff. It's Texas. Yep. So, but I can't just search the book for as soon as I'll be reading it. Well, what about this? I don't know about that. But then I tried looking for something in the index. I couldn't find it. You just can't. If it was a digital thing that I could search, I would love that. That would be absolutely wonderful. Adam apparently says hi as well. You two must be together or something. So, anyways, reading the Chicago Manual of Style. It's I will eventually. And I haven't checked it out from the library. I've just been reading their ref copy. But I will go back and at least finish the punctuation chapter at some point, however long it takes. But writing the rest of the book, which, by the way, since you two are in the comments here, this is the book I mentioned in our friend group chat that you guys are going to be in. I'm not going to spoil any more than that, but you guys will have a small part, because it's a fictional story about my future. So, the main question of this is, what is it? Yeah, so the main question of this is, is my book really present tense? I started writing it present tense because, like I talked about in the first video that I did on this, it was in my journal, and we lost connection there for a second. Let me see if I'm just going to turn off Wi-Fi so it's forced to use mobile data. Hopefully we're still connected. But what I was just saying is one of the things that, like, I'm not sure if did is present tense or past tense. I think did might be able to be both. It's a little confusing. One of the things that has slowed my writing down recently is I fixed up a sentence so that it in that I have written. But we keep disconnecting, reconnecting. So the sentence I was writing in the last chapter that I made present tense, it felt more familiar, better, easier to read past tense, which is the thing I read about present tense being tough to read. But again, with the tweaking, I think I did make it present tense, and so it's good. And so then after that, I decided I would go back and I would skim over some of my previous chapters to see, am I still in present tense or not? And yeah, they might be able to do that. He says, Texas says cloudy skies interrupt the streams. That might be possible. But so what's the word? Also, let me make sure that I am on. I need to pull a Lion King and put your phone up in the sky. No, because then you couldn't see me very well. I'm already holding it up. Idle about. So, So I think it's present tense. But so that's kind of the slowing down thing, is going back and checking over my previous chapters. And so then it comes to the question of where do I check? Because writing in my journal, it was present tense. Well, maybe. When I first was pulling all the sections out of my journal to put it into a separate document and finish it there, and, change some of the details that were a little more personal, I read it, and it seemed to me to be in present tense. And so, as the first video talked about, I tried to decide, do I change it to past tense, or do I keep present tense? I like that present tense is a very in the moment. It has quicker pacing. The other thing I like about present tense is, I might have talked about this in a previous writing video, but if you haven't read a chapter of the book yet, you don't know what's there. You think, I can't wait to find out what happens in the next chapter. For past tense books, because you haven't read it yet, but for a present tense book, kind of sort of, because it hasn't happened yet, and especially since this book takes place in the future, so at the current time, none of this has happened. And so Texas says present tense is often used in action movies and books. That makes sense. This one's not really a present tense. It's not really an action book. But I just like the pacing that it adds if I am in present tense. And then also, you don't know, because it hasn't happened yet, if there was a narrator, which there's not. Except for, there's not a narrator, but he wouldn't know because it hasn't happened yet. I like that. But the little bit of skimming over my previous chapters that I've done, there are some things that kind of seem present tense, but some that don't, and I'm not sure. And to me, it feels like it doesn't feel like I'm switching between tenses so much as that's just how you write this thing. And so, I don't know. But the important thing reading over it, I've mentioned this a few times, this is me tooting my own horn, but don't worry, you guys will get a chance to read it eventually. I've got 1 or 2 more chapters before I start reading it to my parents. But, it's not done. Of all the chapters I have floating around in my head, all the ideas and things, this is only halfway of the book. And I don't know how long it's going to be. So, I'm just unsure if it's actually present tense or not. But so reading it, I read sections over that I kind of sort of remember, or maybe I'd forgotten was in there, and it's just like, wow, that's really good. Like I talked about in the first video on this, it's a fictional story. So I can say the name of my book. The name of my book is Future Fam, which is a shortening of like Future Family. And I don't know. That's what I picked back in 2020 when I was writing this in my journal. But, and I can't remember other projects where I just read it. Wow. Of my own projects. And I've had other moments where I'm like, I did a good job. This is cool. Maybe this is amazing. I like the work that I did on Airborne Death. Other writing things have, felt good, but not in the same way that this does. And like I mentioned in the first video I did on this, like you read this and it's about my future, right? So you'd think, oh, perfect future. Maybe he's an amazing businessman or, movie maker that's world renowned, all this. No, I'm not. It's because I do read comments. So it's this, obviously it's a future that's not going to actually happen. It was based on some things in 2020 that could have been, but I knew they didn't have a high chance. I'm not writing, it was never this fantasy that I desperately wanted to happen that then didn't happen, and now I'm just broken and distraught, and I'm in my own little fantasy world writing this book, pretending it's real, because that's the future I wanted. So, yeah, the pause, thinking about where I was, that does happen. So, yeah, it's just really, really good. And I'm this broken person that is really nice and good, but yet has flaws. And I just really like that. And I read things and they're just so nice. And I think about things I'm gonna write and I just get so excited. I know people are gonna be so, well, I don't know. I'm positive, highly positive, people are gonna be so happy reading this. It's a wonderful story. I know this is a bit awkward, tooting my own horn when nobody's read it yet. Haven't gotten any feedback other than on some of my previous writing. I know it's good for some of my poems and things, and comments that I've had on that. I'm using logic to infer how this may go, but it's I think of, do I want to say this? I'm just going to say it, and if it's not true, well, whatever. I tried with this story. But I think of Dallas Jenkins, creator of The Chosen. He once mentioned, if you haven't seen that, go watch The Chosen. He mentioned that his teenage daughter had some friends over, and when Jesus healed someone, they were all cheering and super excited. And so I don't know, I kind of get that feeling when I think of some of the things. I'm not jumping up and down cheering, but it's just this wonderful happy feeling, and I've never felt so happy and so peaceful about other writing. I'm not saying this is going to be perfect, and I'm definitely not saying that it definitely is present tense, because I'm a little confused about what is and isn't. And there's going to be room for improvement. The later chapters will probably be a little better than some of the first chapters, just because I've learned new things along the way, and I'm writing them in, and I'm remembering to think about more things. Like an example will be with this last chapter. After reading some things online, I'm more conscious about making sure people are doing stuff in the conversation, instead of person 1 said, person 2 said, person 3 said, person 1 remarked, person 2 asked question, person 3 replied or answered question. I do have that in there, but I'm also making sure, and person 3 glanced to the left, person 3 made a sandwich or something, I don't know. So it's turning out really good. I am really, really excited for this, and yeah, it just makes me feel so good reading over some of the sections. And I'm just kind of in awe. Not so much, wow, I wrote that. It's, wow, that's good. Yes, I wrote that. I'm doing good. And since I have about 2 friends here watching, I will say something I've mentioned in a previous writing video. You know, I have a good amount of fictional characters in the story, but I also have some real characters in the story. I have written my friends in there. It's what I think they would do in a given situation. And so far, I think I'm doing pretty good. It's not going to be perfect. I'm sure some of you guys will disagree, but the biggest thing is, you know, it's been like a little bit nervous about, like, so what do I put? And ooh, here's a good story idea. Well, yeah, but I don't want to give my friend that. I don't want that to happen to them. It might make a good story, but I don't want that to happen to them. It's kind of sad. Or like, I have a friend that's going to be in the story, and he's had like a really tough life recently, and I've learned a lot more about him than I knew beforehand when I started writing this story. And so I'm going to have like a page or so where he's in there, and I know what I'm going to do that's not going to be this. But what I'm going to do is maybe it's a little more optimistic than things may be right now, but I definitely don't want to write them as they are. Because if I did, then it would be, you know, this friend has some problems that he's working through, and I could just write with, he still has a bunch of those in the future, and then it's like, oh, why did you write me that way? Because that's a reflection of the way things are. So I'm definitely trying to write things nice, and, you know, I'm pretty sure that all the real people in the story won't be bothered by what happens. You guys will be fine with it, and it's going to be great. And that's pretty much it for this little video on how my writing's going. The last thing I need to say, though, is, you know, I'm just going to go forward and trust that I'm doing a good enough job for what I want for this story. And I'm not going to worry too much about present tense. Yes, I am still going to try and keep it present tense, but if I get a little bit off from that, fine. If my previous chapters aren't perfectly present tense, fine. And we'll leave it at there. But yeah, I'm really, really excited. If you guys are excited for this story, please leave a like down below. It's going to be going on my Wattpad. I will try and remember to put a link in the description as soon as I end this stream, so that you guys can find that and go see my previous works that are on there. And there's other stuff that I need to upload there too, eventually. That's the thing that I need to just sit down and tackle sometime. But I'll see you guys in whatever's next. Bye!